Good afternoon. Welcome to our Municipal Council for Tuesday, June the 4th, 2019. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declarations of interest. Seeing none, we have a presentation from someone who we used to see a lot of and we haven't seen for a while, Mr. Nykoluk. Welcome. Good to have you here with us. We knew you were busy somewhere, but we weren't really sure. We had used you up for a little while, so it's nice to have you back again and in front of us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah. Well, Madam Mayor, members of Council, Chief Administrative Officer Mr. Webster, senior management, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you to all the staff at East Gwillimbury for your involvement and collaboration on the second concession project. And when talking about this very special project, I always begin with a quote. Imagine 3 rapidly growing communities surrounding a beautiful conservation area. Connecting these communities meant crossing the conservation area with a new 4-lane road, 3 bridges, and multiple trunk sanitary sewers and a water main. And before I quote some of the residents' comments, perhaps we could see a video of the second concession. So here are some of the quotes from emails from residents. The wooden walkway over the dam is very peaceful. You can hear the ducks, the rushing water. It's a little oasis. It's a place where we can not only get some exercise, but also take a breath and escape from the hustle and bustle of life. My wife and I cycled the path in June and we were both impressed by this infrastructure. It gives a feeling of being somewhere else other than where you are, if you know what I mean. Yesterday was the first time we took our dogs for a walk along Second Concession. The boardwalk for the trail blends in well with the environment. The view from the bridge is amazing. The viewing platforms on the bridge are a nice touch. And from Brian Kemp, General Manager of the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, people don't focus on the concrete, they focus on the boardwalk and the wetlands. And with the warranty period coming to an end, we find it fitting to celebrate with our partner, the town of East Gwillimbury, the recognition the project's received, including the Ontario Public Works Project of the Year Award in the greater than $50 million category. This award and recognition is a testament to the cooperation and collaboration between the town and the region since this project began in late 2008. So on behalf of York Region, thank you to all of the staff at East Gwillimbury for your involvement and collaboration on this very special project. Thank you.
I think we should all go down and have a picture with this. Those that were here understand all the work that was done, and sometimes it was painful and other times it was delightful. And those that were not here but are here now, perhaps that's part of the reason they chose to join us in that. What a fabulous facility that we have. So let's everybody come down and get a picture.
Yes. Oh, there's always more.
Send this to Bruce. We'll get a good shot.
We have a couple people who'd like to say something, so please come back. It's all good. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did, while Mr. Nykoluk did thank our staff and us, I wanted to acknowledge his hard work. And those of us who were here, you will recall that often Mr. Nykoluk wasn't the bearer of good news. But for our residents, I have never heard people who were so upset and yet so full of respect and admiration for the job that Mr. Nykoluk was doing. And it was truly a unique talent of his, I would say, that while he had difficult news to deliver on many occasions, he did it with grace and tact, and our residents respected him for that. And I wanted to extend my appreciation for his hard work on behalf of our municipality.
Thank you very much, Tara. Exactly, it was a pleasure working with you. It was a difficult project when a community roads are closed for, how many months was that?
More than a few months.
And of course, everybody had an opinion of what was going on and what should happen, and we had all kinds of residents who became engineers very quickly. It was a pleasure to work with you, and I think my final pleasure was, of course, the opening to cut that ribbon and the icing on the cake of that. And I'm not sure how many were here. Most were here, but if you recall that there was a band playing, and an Elvis Presley impersonator arrived on the stage to sing, what was it? I'm trying to remember, Blue Suede Shoes, maybe? Little did we know that you were very talented musically as well. So that's how I think you got through the days with some of our residents, and we do appreciate it, and thank you very, very much. And Salim also for all the work that you did as well. It is a showcase for us now. You'll see in our building here that there are pictures that people have painted and photographs that people have taken, and there isn't a week goes by for myself, and I know for other members of council, that you don't run into somebody who says, oh my goodness, the trail is absolutely beautiful, the bridge is wonderful, and we're enjoying it so much. So thank you very much. You've left something very special for us here. Thank you. If you want to leave, you can. We still have an agenda if you'd like to stay.
Back to work.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Motion to receive, Councillor Roy DiClemente, Councillor Persicini. All those in favor? And that's carried. We do not have any deputations, is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
Correct, Madam Mayor.
And we are at committee recommendations. And could I have a mover for the committee recommendations, pages 6 to 8, please? Councillor Foster, Councillor Crothers, all those in favor, and that's carried. Mr. Lamanna?
Madam Mayor, you do have recommendations from today. They are, we'll just put them on the screen for you. They're with regards to the award of tender contract for the Op Center. And just to remind council that that resolution was amended, so we have the full amendment on screen for you to review with the highlights of the amendments.
Councillor Roy DiClemente.
I'm happy to move it. I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Roy DiClemente is requesting a recorded vote on the award of tender for the Op Center as amended and presented on the screen for you. Councillor Roy DiClemente, how do you vote?
I vote yes, but I'd like a seconder for my motion, please.
Oh, my apologies.
I'll second.
Thank you. Councillor
Powerful,
Crothers,
but
how
not
do you
that
vote?
powerful.
Thank you. Councillor Crone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Foster, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Haxon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Persicini, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. I am so sorry, Councillor Moore. Sorry, I'm not with it today. Councillor Morton, how do you vote?
I'll vote twice if it helps.
Actually, I don't think your vote really matters. It's carried.
That's a good one. It's okay. We've been here too long.
Okay, we're at
Back to work.
we're at adoption of minutes, and the first ones are May the 14th from our special meeting. I have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Crothers, Councillor Roy DiClemente. All those in favor, and that's carried. The second one is our Committee of the Whole minutes from May the 22nd. Moved by Councillor Morton, seconded by Councillor Foster. All those in favor, and that's carried. The third one is our special meeting on May the 22nd, moved by Councillor Roy DeClemente, seconded by Councillor Crone. All those in favor, and that's carried. And our council minutes from the meeting held on May the 22nd, and that is moved by Councillor Roy DeClemente, Councillor Crothers, Councillor Roy DeClemente. All those in favor, and that's carried. We have correspondence for consideration, and it is regarding a situation that came to us last week regarding some property and livestock and a half acre. And Chief, would you like to talk about this one? Or where would you like us to go with this one?
With respect, Madam Mayor, if you're asking me to talk about it, I certainly will.
Will you
Would I
please?
like to talk about it?
No, I'm sure not. Okay, please.
Well, we have Manager Nichols here to shed light on any details, but it's an open file, so careful how much I disclose, but rest assured that we are actioning this, and there has been some actions in the last 24 hours, and the situation, although continues to develop, it's not without monitoring, and in fact some enforcement parameters issued. Jennifer or Ms. Nichols, would you like to add any? Looks like I covered.
Thank you. Do we have bylaws in place to deal with such a situation?
Ms. General Manager Marco would be more than happy to answer that.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the property in question is zoned rural, which does permit growing of crops as our general provisions allow and raising of livestock. The one thing that I think we need to do with this raises, we need to revisit our bylaw, because under the old bylaw, it did include the Ministry of Ag and Food minimum distance separation requirements, which was pulled out of this new current bylaw. So I think we'll, based on this incident, we'll look at bringing back a report to council to introduce those very appropriate minimum distance separation distance requirements within the rural zoning category. And what that does is sets those parameters with respect to buildings that house livestock, ensuring that the lot is large enough for the number of animals in a particular parcel of land, and certain distance setbacks are respected. So it's something that would require an amendment to the zoning bylaw.
And how would that leave the residents that have written the letter to us? If there's not a bylaw in place now, we add one later on, we're attempting to correct something that is already taking place?
I spent a bit of time this morning looking at the Ag and Food MDS requirements, and notwithstanding if we amend the zoning bylaw, it would come, at a later date after the fact, that I think we'd still have a pretty solid ground to enforce the new requirements, because it does relate to the Ministry of Ag and Food policy. So again, it'd still be an enforcement issue, but it would be a new bylaw set of standard requirements that are valid. There's a higher level ministry requirements there. For whatever reason, they were pulled out of, removed from the bylaw last year.
Mr. Webster.
This is actually, Madam Mayor, the first time I've heard of this. I haven't followed the email trail, but to me, the amount of focus and effort for staff that they placed on the environmental protection, this one almost seems to me to be a mistake. And I'm wondering if it's fixable, whether there might be a quick way to, and I wouldn't call it amending the bylaw, I would call it resurrecting the proper provisions in the bylaw that Because I don't think there'd be anybody that would have suggested that allowing a farm on a half-acre lot would be well advised, 10 feet from neighbors. So I'm going to seek our solicitor, and maybe we can report further to council on some remedies that might be able to be taken sooner rather than later on this one, and report further as to why those provisions were in fact overlooked when this new bylaw was brought forward.
I think it's a problem for both residents. For those that have lived there for quite some time on a large acreage that have animals, and they are certainly within their power to do so. And someone who's bought, it sounds like someone who has recently bought a piece of property, and for them, a half acre is something large that they want to have cows and chickens and pigs and whatever. And unfortunately, we don't have anything in place to say that one can and one cannot. So I think the sooner that we could deal with it would be better than waiting months to change the bylaw to react to this. Councillor Carruthers and then Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Thank you. I agree with your proposed remedy of looking back on our bylaw history. Moving forward, I'd really like us to consider animal welfare when if we're looking at changing the bylaw. It's very disturbing to hear someone who thinks that they can keep a cow and sheep and all those other animals on such a small lot, and I would worry about the animals. I know in Toronto there's a growing trend for having chickens at home, and a lot of people, I have friends who are in very small houses and have chickens. So chickens are different than sheep and cow. But I think that when we look at our bylaws, if we could look specifically at the larger animals and make sure that their well-being is a consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Thank you. I too sort of approach this issue as a zoning issue as well as an animal husbandry issue, and related to the property standards matter. For me as well, I grew up on a rural property that was 2 acres, and the zoning bylaw in my community when I was growing up was actually very specific about which kinds of animals we could have on our property, and because of the smell of the manure, the pigs and sheep were not allowed, and the rooster wasn't allowed because of the proximity to adjacent homes, because noise carries and so does smell, as we know. And so I think it would be helpful as well if there's some way to address to Councillor Carruthers' point about the size of the animal, but also just sort of the nature of the animal husbandry issues that some animals raise, being their manure or their noise or whatever it is, and the size of the properties involved. It would be great, and it sounds like we've got a plan for a quick fix to address this, but sort of the longer term, we should be a little bit more mindful of this.
Councillor Morton.
I understand that the people aren't even living in the house yet, and they're just dropping off the animals. So I'm not sure how well they are being looked after at the same time.
We have staff who I'm sure are well aware of what's going on, probably know more than you need to know, but maybe not. You've probably had a number of visits there, and so if we can leave it in staff's hands, I think that's probably the best, and come back at another point in time and give us an update. Councillor Roy DeClemente.
So I was going to suggest I'll make a motion that we receive the correspondence and that we refer it to staff with direction to find a speedy resolution to the current issue, as well as as well as report back with long-term recommendations to address this going forward.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Number 2 is from the Ontario Power Generation requesting a temporary road closure on Donald Stewart Crescent in Mount Albert, Saturday 22nd from 4 to 10 p.m. for the purpose of a street party. I'm not sure why it is being sent from the Ontario Power Generation. It sounds to me like this is someone's personal home.
Works there.
Still unusual to, yes. And we have choices here. It would be, should we choose to or decline? Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Crone, Councillor Morton. I'm assuming that it's the larger verbiage that you are including? Yes. Your motion to approve. Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. Number 3 is correspondence from Gary Blyth, Captain of the Holland Landing Firefighters Association, requesting council to waive the rental fees associated with the use of the Holland Landing Community Center on June the 7th for the purpose of celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Firefighters Association. Councillor Morton.
I'd like to move that we allow them to use it without any charge.
Thank you. Mr. Karmazin, can you let us know what amount of money we're waiving, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the cost for the York Trillium Room is $643.70.
I'm quite fine with that as long as it isn't a fundraiser that charity begins at home. If it's a celebration, I think that's very appropriate, but otherwise I would, I'm not sure how we stipulate that. Councillor Roy DiClemente?
I believe the correspondence tells us that they are collecting, there's going to be a boot at the bar, I think is what it said. At the bar for donations, all proceeds will go to South Lake Hospital. Yeah. In which case, if that's happening, then it fits our policy. Yes. So.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. Yes. All in favor? And that's carried. We have correspondence from Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, regarding the Ontario Housing Supply Action Plan, and that corresponds to be forwarded to staff for a response back and a copy to council. Staff, how long might you require to provide some kind of correspondence back to us? Mr. Maruno?
To you, Madam Mayor, I think we can have something ready for the next cycle.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Persichini, seconded by Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that's carried. Number 5 is correspondence from a resident regarding a pedestrian crosswalk on Center Street in Mount Albert. Councillor Morton?
I was given to understand a few months back that there was something that was going to be going in there, but having a conversation not too long ago, they have taken that off because apparently it doesn't reach the, it doesn't warrant a crosswalk, but maybe one of the gentlemen over here could fill that in a little bit more.
Mr. Molinari?
Through you, Madam Mayor. We did bring a report to May 22nd that looked at warrants along Center Street, at Mill Street, and also at the Vivian Creek Park entrance. And Council did endorse putting the pedestrian crossover in at Center and Mill Street, which is in the works. However, the one at Vivian Creek and Center Street was only about 15% of meeting the warrant. So although we believe that it's at some point, it's certainly a location to watch over the next little bit, it's still a little under what we'd like to see in terms of approaching the warrant. So maybe that's one of those ones where once we install the crossover at Mill Street, we'll keep a close eye and we'll do some more counts right afterwards, and we'll come back to council with a further report if it's closer to meeting those warrants.
Further to that, Madam Mayor, my one concern with that is the fact that we're going to be starting construction there pretty soon. And you're going to have trucks going in there and everything else, so that at that point, and from what I understand, it's not going to be down the road, it's going to be fairly shortly, that we may have to look at it a little sooner than we think we are right at this point.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll certainly keep a close eye on it, and when the time is right or when we feel that it makes sense, we can be in contact with you, and we'll bring something forward at that time.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. We have no reports at this time. We have no resolutions at this time. We have bylaws. Go ahead. Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder for both?
Yes.
Councillor Persicini, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? That's carried. Any other business before us at this time? Seeing none. Confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor Roy DeClemente. All those in favor? That's carried. And an adjournment we will have at 3:33.
That's a nice, go get a lottery ticket now. 333.
Moved by Councillor Persicini, seconded
Yes.
by Councillor Crothers. All those in favor? And that's carried.